From Vermont Public, I'm Michaela Lafrac.
And from the CBC, I'm Sean Appel.
Welcome to a special broadcast of Radio Noon and Vermont Edition.
And as you can tell, today our show is going to sound a little bit different from what you are used to hearing. I'm co-hosting the program today with Michaela Lafrac, who is the host of Vermont's call-in show, Vermont Edition. Michaela is in her studio in Colchester, Vermont. I'm right here in our Montreal studio.
And this hour, we're going to be taking calls from both Canadians and Americans. It's your chance to talk to your neighbors on the other side of the border. You can give us a call and tell us what you want to communicate to those neighbors.
So, Michaela, I'm thinking now that we've explained a bit about what we're doing, maybe we should talk a bit about why we are doing it. So, Michaela, why did you want to do this show?
Well, first, Sean, I just want to say I'm a little jealous you guys have a text line. We have to get one of those for Vermont Edition. But yeah, so just to start on a personal note for me, Sean, one of my favorite things about living here in Vermont is our proximity to Quebec. I mean, I know so many people with family on both sides of the border. I listen to Quebecois music on the radio on my commute. I love visiting Montreal and the eastern townships. And it just feels like a really special and unique relationship. And in the last few months, it has admittedly been both difficult and fascinating as a journalist to get to watch how that relationship has changed. I mean, there's been the trade wars and President Trump's statements about how Canada should be the 51st state. And I want to acknowledge here that a third of Vermonters voted for President Trump in the last election, and 2/3 did not. So take of that what you will. But our congressional representatives have been really critical of the president, especially in the last couple of weeks. We can listen to a clip right now of Vermont Senator Peter Welch. This is him on the CBC last week talking about President Trump's 51st state comments.
I speak for Vermonters, and I think for most Americans. We so value our relationship, and we're appalled by the president's rhetoric. It's pretty demeaning. So there's no place for that.
So yeah, I guess all this is to say that I've always seen Vermont Edition as this kind of rare place where people can say how they're really feeling and also take some time to listen to what other people think. And I'm just really glad, Sean, that we can bring both of our radio communities together today.
This is great.
So yeah, how about you? What were your initial thoughts on this show?
We thought, great idea. And I think we think about Vermont the way that you were sort of describing you feeling about Quebec. Neighbors and more than neighbors, really good friends and just these tight bonds. And so lately, though, that's been really different. And we've been talking so much kind of among ourselves as Quebecers, as Canadians, about how we are feeling about the States over the last few months, right? And this, being able to talk with you in the States, it just feels like it makes so much sense.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of some of the difficult conversations I think we want to try to have today, in the past couple months, President Trump has repeatedly called Canada the 51st state and also referred to Justin Trudeau as a governor. How did those statements from the American president affect folks there?
It was nuts. I mean, the reaction to it has just been kind of, what you would expect, I guess, when your huge neighbor to the south is suddenly talking about, hey, why don't we kind of take that place over? So, scared, offended, angry, confused, scared. I think I mentioned that one already, but it's worth repeating that one because I think that was this, what is going on here? What is this? And, angry, it led to sort of Canadian pride and all that, but just confusion, betrayal. Tell me, what have you heard over the last few months about that whole thing from Vermonters, about Canadians, Quebecers, whether we are still going to the States, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton of concern here about the effects on both personal relationships that Vermonters have with folks in Canada, as well as the economic impact. And we'll hear a little bit more about that later in the show from one of our reporters. But I want to read a couple of emails, actually, that we got ahead of today's show. And we've gotten so many when we put out the call with this question. What do you want to say to your neighbors across the border? Abby in Woodstock writes, please tell all Canadians that we love them and are terribly embarrassed by our president, and would they consider adopting Vermont? Megan in Burlington also wanted to apologize for President Trump's behavior. They write, I completely understand why Quebecers refuse to come to the States right now, but I own a small business and I've already noticed a lowered income. Canadians' absence has been and will be greatly felt. So yeah, I think those are the two big concerns that we hear again and again. Some embarrassment, though I know that's not shared by all our listeners, as well as concern about this economic fraying that we're seeing.
Yeah, and we've sort of seen the flip side and this feeling of betrayal and what should I do and should I go and, what does it say if I go, and a lot of we love Vermont sort of mixed in there, and we know Vermont is not the antagonist in there. So a couple of weeks ago, it was really interesting. We spoke with an immigration lawyer, and it was just, your questions about going to the United States right now. So people had questions like, is it safe? Can I go right now? Should I use a burner phone? That kind of stuff comes up also, right? And then this one caller phones in, Linda from Longueuil, just on the south shore here of Montreal. She calls in and she basically says, look, you're talking about all these, arrangements of how to go. And she says, why would you even want to go? Let's take a listen to that.
Trump says he wants to destroy our economy. He wants to take over Canada to become the 51st state. Non-citizens are facing intimidation and threats. Why are we still going to the U.S.? Get with the program. If you don't have job or work or family, you have no business going to the U.S. Why are they encouraging still people to go? What is it that people want there?
So that's Linda from Longueuil calling into our program a couple of weeks ago. Today, we are asking people listening today, what do you want to say to people on the other side of the border? So if you are listening right now and you are in Quebec, we want you to give us a call about why you are going to the States, maybe why you've decided not to. So the number again in Montreal, 514-597-4500, toll-free 1-877-597-4500.
And in the U.S., it's 800-639-2211. Sean, should we take some calls?
I think we definitely should. And we're going to go to a call here in Quebec, in Knowlton, in the townships to be specific. We're going to talk with Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hey, hi, Sean.
How you doing?
Very good. You?
Good. Thank you. And tell me what's on your mind. What do you want to say to people in Vermont?
Okay, well, I have a small business where 80% of my sales are in the U.S. I have an intense love for Vermont, especially. It's such an incredibly wonderful place. I was there a few weeks ago for the big rally in in Montpelier, where Josh Freed actually had a beautiful speech. It's heart-wrenching, and it's, I think, the kind of thing where people are going to have to react in a grassroots way and kind of rise above all the bull that's happening out of Washington. And I think that's what's happening. I just think that Americans, generally know that Canadians love them. I mean, I hope so. For me, it's very, very personal because most of my family now live in the States. And, some of them are kind of supportive of these tariffs, some aren't. And that's really painful because you have to kind of sit down and explain to them what exactly happened, because there's a lot of delusions out there of what the effect of all these tariffs are. So I think we have to just reach out to our friends. It's funny, I do Airbnb in Knowlton. I had a huge number of American visitors last summer, and I just got a message from one of them who was thinking about moving to Canada and say, yeah, that's it, biting the bullet, I put my house up for sale, and I'm moving. And I tell my American friends this, and they say, nobody's going to move. Like, that's not going to happen. It's just talk. Well, it's not talk. It's people who are my customers. I feel so sorry for us. They're so incredibly sympathetic. So I think
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to note to the caller here that what you're saying so echoes so much of what we have been hearing here in Vermont. It sounds like you have these really close ties, familial ties and business ties to the United States. And we also got this email that, again, echoes exactly what you're saying. It's from Jess in Starksboro, who runs a small local business that they founded in Montreal and then moved back to Starksboro, brought the business with them. Their eldest daughter, who's also their employee, was at the border last week filing paperwork to import some products, which they've been doing for the past decade, but ended up turning around because she was hit with a tariff bill of about $1,000, and their typical payment is about $60 to $75. Jess writes, it's not an option for us or our distributors to absorb this cost. And Jess goes on to say that this has just been a devastating personal blow as they've had deep emotional ties to Quebec. So, yeah, Sean, so many echoes here.
As you were saying earlier, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, I have a workaround for small business that are selling in the States, and I'm doing that. What I'm now doing is I make my products in Canada. They have to then be assembled, and then I do the assembly in Vermont, so that when I enter the U.S., if there's a tariff, the tariff is a much lower base because I'm only bringing in components. So I don't know if anyone wants to know. Obviously, I can't tell the name of my business. I don't want to do that. But there are ways around it for small businesses if they're creative. It's not easy.
Michael, here's what I'm curious about, though. All the Canadians who are saying, I don't want to go right now. How do you feel about that?
I feel like so mixed up emotionally because, it's the right thing to do to boycott. It really is because, when you boycott, travel, it hurts them. And we're not trying to hurt people. We're obviously trying to get the message to the people who have who are in power, right? So then when we do those boycotts, then the people who are losing money start to grumble and start to complain to their the state's legislatures or whoever senators or congressmen. They start to complain, and then those congressmen start to complain to others, and that's the only way that you can get this done. And it's emotionally tearing because like Josh Freed said it in his speech. He goes to Vermont, been going there his whole life, and now he's not going. He said, "Sorry," and it was really, really straight, and the message was applauded. He said, "I'm not coming back."
Yeah, for sure. And I think he speaks for lots of people here who are sending that kind of message. Michael, I'm so glad you called in. Really good to speak with you. Thanks for doing that. It's Michael there in Knowlton. And Michaela, I think you've got a caller, right?
Yes, we have a number of folks who are calling in. And thanks so much to everybody who has voiced their thoughts for this conversation, this important conversation we've been having today. We have Howard Dean on the line, former Governor Howard Dean, as well as a former presidential candidate. Governor Dean, thank you so much for calling in. What are your thoughts?
Thanks. Well, first of all, I agree with what Michael just said, that you can't blame the Canadians for not wanting to come. I do hope that people will take a slightly perspective, particularly the three northern New England states, New Hampshire, Vermont. About a quarter of all the people here are descended from French Canadians. And to just look at the phone book, although the spelling's a little different, Bourbeau is B-U-R-B-O here, and E-A-U up there. So the ties are very close. We have a president who is not in his right mind, and that's pretty obvious. But I understand, and we're never going to invade Canada. I have enough problems on his mind, I reckon, the American economy before we ever get around to do anything like that in Canada. And I think, frankly, he'd be removed from office. But I can understand why people are mad, but I just want people, especially people north of the border, the three of us, and really all of New England, we have long-standing relationships. When I was governor, we spent a lot of time with the premiers of the Atlantic provinces and Quebec. We get most of our electricity from Hydro-Quebec. So we are bound together whether we like it or not. I agree with Michael. I don't blame people for lashing out, but we are not the same as the rest of America. We are the opposition. We voted 2/3 against Trump, and most of the other New England states. He didn't win a New England state. So we're still relatives. The boss has made some stupid mistakes and said some dumb things. But we've got to make sure this relationship continues, because we have a hell of a lot more in common with Quebec and the Atlantic provinces than we do with Texas or Florida.
Former Governor Howard Dean, thank you so much for calling in. And I think your comments get to the heart of one of the tensions we're discussing here today, which is I know both Vermont and Quebec have some separatist history to them, and sometimes struggle with the ties to their larger nation, and have a lot of opposing political views. And, in this situation, how closely do we stay united as a country versus as a region in the world? Let's give our numbers again. We in the United States can use the number 800-639-2211 to participate in this cross-border conversation. And Sean?
Right here for people listening to us on CBC, local number 514-597-4500, toll-free number right across Quebec. It's 1-877-597-4500.
And Sean, I want to bring in one more voice here. My colleague at Vermont Public, Pete Hirschfeld, is a State House reporter based in Montpelier. Usually covers Vermont government, but Pete, like many of us, you have been focused on contextualizing some of the national news for our region. And you've been speaking with a lot of Vermont business owners recently about the effects of these tariffs and President Trump's statements about Canada. What have you heard?
Yeah, I think ever since we saw Canada come into the White House's crosshairs, first with the 51st state rhetoric, then with the tariffs that were threatened and then withdrawn shortly after, a lot of anecdotal evidence that folks that live in Canada and Quebec specifically were not going to be coming to Vermont at the numbers that we had become accustomed to. We're beginning to see some statistical evidence that is in fact the case. We know from some statistics compiled in Canada that in last year, during the month of March, the number of cars that went from Canada into Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York was 603,000. And we know that this past March, that number was down to 472,000. So this is a real phenomenon. This is affecting the Canadians' appetite to come to Vermont. And it's an economic reality, a new economic reality that is going to affect a lot of businesses here.
And what has Vermont's Governor Phil Scott said in response to President Trump's actions?
He has been especially upset by the tariffs. He says he thinks these are a horrible idea. He doesn't think from an economic philosophy perspective that this is the right tool for the job he's trying to get done. And he's also expressed concern about what he calls the inflammatory rhetoric that Trump has used when talking about Canada. I'll say his rhetoric has not been nearly as acute as people like Senate President Pro Tem Phil Baruth, who is the leader of the Vermont State Senate. And he actually, in a committee hearing last month, took the opportunity to formally apologize to Canada and to Canadians for what Donald Trump has been saying about them becoming the 51st state, and also sort of telling Vermonters, not to underestimate how deep the economic wounds could be to the state as a result of that rhetoric.
We got an email from Greg in Thetford who says that they skied at Jay Peak, close to the border, during the first week of March when most of the people there were Canadians on their March break. While riding the ski lifts, I had many friendly conversations, which frequently touched on politics. I often apologized for Donald Trump's acrimonious language and tariffs and pointed out that less than a third of Vermonters had voted for them. I hope that they would continue to visit and feel welcome. Pete, lastly, you spoke to folks at Jay Peak and a number of other businesses, as we've mentioned. Are there any other specific conversations that stick out to you from that reporting?
Yeah, Steve Wright is the president of Jay Peak Resort, and he says that among Canadian ski pass holders, early sales for next winter season's passes are down by 80%. And he actually has been calling the heads of those households to find out, why aren't you booking? And he said, almost to a person, it's not because of the taxes, it's not because of the currency exchange, it's not because of trouble crossing the border. He said it's because of the challenge to their sovereignty by our administration. And so there's a growing sense in places like the Northeast Kingdom especially that it is going to be a rough summer ahead as it relates to tourism dollars coming in from Canada.
Well, Pete Hirschfeld, thanks so much for driving over from Montpelier to speak with me and Sean today.
Yeah, I'm glad y'all are doing this show. It's a cool idea.
Thanks.
It is a cool idea. And Michaela, I want to head right back to our phone lines here. So let's do that. Toll-free number is 1-877-597-4500. And we've got Jonathan here from Toronto. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, how are you? Bonjour.
I'm doing okay. So what's got you calling in? What do you want to say to people in Vermont?
Well, I just left Underhill, Vermont this morning at 6:30 a.m. I'm heading back to where I live in Toronto. I'm a dual citizen, and my daughter lives in Montreal. She's grown up, but a dual citizen as well. My dad lives in Underhill. Being 95, I'm back and forth every week. I've got to say, there's political, economic issues with this, but it's also very emotional. Dad got his doctorate in the University of Montreal, and he taught in St. Michael's College in Vermont. That's where I grew up. I'm back and forth all the time. The amount of kindness that people have had. People will see the Canadian car and will stop me and apologize for what's going on. The border has not been a problem for me, as I was born in the United States. For my daughter, she spent a long time at the border, coming over 2 weekends ago, and doesn't want to come back anytime soon because she was born outside of the United States, even though she holds the U.S. passport, and felt that she was being, to some extent, harassed.
Tell you what, I want to hear more about your daughter. We got to take a quick break here, so we're going to do that. We are doing a special edition today of Radio Noon and Vermont Edition. We are going to take a quick break for news and weather updates. We'll be back just after that.
Welcome back to a special joint broadcast of Vermont Edition on Vermont Public and the CBC's Radio Noon. I'm Michaela Lafrac, and I'm joined this hour by Sean Appel, the host of Radio Noon in Quebec. And today on both our programs, we are asking you together, what do you want to say to your neighbors across the border?
And people want to say a lot. The lines are pretty full, I think, on both sides. I'm going to squeeze in the number one more time here, just in case. So locally, it's 514-597-4500. Toll-free is 1-877-597-4500. Michaela, you want to give out your numbers?
Yep, 800-639-2211. And if you have a thought that you want to share with us and you can't get through on the phones, you can always email vermontedition@vermontpublic.org.
And we are talking right now with Jonathan, who called in a couple of minutes ago. Jonathan calling on his way back to Toronto. And Jonathan, you were talking about your close ties with Vermont. You were telling us about your daughter and how she's feeling. I want you to tell me a little bit more about what is going through her mind right now.
Well, she's been living in Montreal since going to university at McGill. She normally runs back and forth to Vermont to help out, take care of my dad, her grandfather, being one of the closest people to come. And she had a problem a couple of weeks ago crossing the border. She wasn't born in the United States, although she is a U.S. citizen and Canadian. that seems to be one of the things that's being a problem. If you're not born, they seem to pull you to secondary and have a lot of questions about why you're living in Canada, how did you get your citizenship. But in terms of sort of family things, every fall we seem to get together at Quimby's, which is in the Northeast Kingdom, and my daughter and her partner come down, and we come down, and my brother's family comes up, and we spend a weekend there. That's probably not going to happen in the near future. They just are so hurt about what's being said, even though we're all dual citizens and we vote in both countries and we file taxes in both countries and we follow all the rights and responsibilities. It's really hard to, very emotional too.
Yeah, so logistical issues, but also, as you say, that emotional sense that sort of seeps right through everything. I'm really glad you called in. I appreciate you doing that. I think, Michaela, we're going to head back to you, right?
All right. We have Robert in Burlington calling in. Robert, go ahead.
The connection is kind of poor. Do you hear me okay?
No, Robert, unfortunately, we can't. I know you've been waiting on the line, so we're going to go to somebody else and then see if we can get a better connection with you. Let's go to Lisa in Shelburne next. Lisa, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. A couple of quick things. I was in Montreal a few weeks ago at one of my favorite yarn shops on the plateau, and I overheard the shopkeeper explaining to customers how they are not stocking Vermont. They're not stocking yarn made in the U.S. and totally got it. And I also wanted to say, and was too shy, please continue to buy from Vermont. And I just want to share that with our Canadian friends. On a personal note, my brother and family live in Montreal, and my brother is in the process of actually ending his United States citizenship, kind of in protest, while my nephew, who is a professor in the U.S., can't go back to Canada right now for fear he won't be able to return across the border. So very emotional, very personal, and please continue to support Vermont friends across the border.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for calling in. And it's always so interesting to hear, Sean, these like specific ways in which these large global issues are affecting people, from, family ties to the yarn you're buying at the yarn shop. Let's just try Robert again real quick. Robert in Burlington. Are you with us? Nope. All right. We're going to head back across the border to you, Sean,
we will do
one
that,
of your callers.
Sort of between Montreal and you guys. We'll go to Magog in the Eastern Townships, and we'll speak with Claudia. Hi, Claudia.
Hi. I want to apologize to start with because I'm really stressed. I find this whole situation so sad. We share a border with Newport, and I feel that everybody's losing in all this. And I feel really angry at some point because I didn't vote for Trump. And whether you voted for him or not, for a reason, personal reason, that's your business in the United States. But it affects my life because I'm a single person. I'm losing the small money I put aside. I'm losing it because of your president. Whether it's Obama, whether it would be Trump, I don't care. I didn't vote for him. And I feel so sad because everybody's changing the way they're buying stuff. And if we start to go at other places than Florida, we're going to go to, Costa Rica or Mexico or Spain or Portugal. Do you think we're going to go back to the States right now? If I went to the States, I would be afraid if I had dark hair and a darker skin to be arrested. That's the situation right now. And I know some people are going to say, well, she's Capote, she's crazy. But that's the sentiment right now. And I think everybody loses because if I don't buy stuff from the United States, then shops are going to close in the United States, and the tariffs are going to make shops close here. And another thing I would like to say to Americans, why don't you ask Apple, Google, all those guys who are in the White House right now to open warehouses in Ohio or in Kentucky, a call center or warehouses? I mean, why don't anybody ask those billionaires to build shops, warehouse in the United States? I mean, don't you feel that you gave, American people gave money to those corporate, I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
Well, no, that's okay. So listen, Claudia, we asked what do you want to say to people on the border, and you were sort of extending that to people who run those big companies south of the border. That's fair, and I'm really glad that you called in. Hear a lot going on in your voice, Claudia. So thank you for that. Claudia there from Magog. And Michaela, we'll head back to you.
Yeah, we're hearing a whole range of emotions during this conversation today, Sean, which makes a lot of sense. It's a really complex and difficult topic for many of us. We have Ken calling in from Littleton, New Hampshire. Ken, what are your thoughts?
Hi. Yeah, I just feel bad that most of New England and New York voted blue. We bear the brunt of this, and it makes us feel helpless because we didn't do this, and we knew it, and we didn't choose it, and here we are. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. And yes, echoing a sentiment from earlier about how about a third of Vermonters did vote for President Trump. 2/3 of Vermonters did not. Those numbers are a little bit different in neighboring states. Let's go back to the CBC, Sean, one of your callers.
And I just wanted to point out that among the reasons that you hear from Canadians for not wanting to go is, well, I don't want to be counted as one of those numbers. Your reporter was talking earlier about the statistics of business down, it's just cross-border trips down. So a lot of people are like, I know this has nothing to do with the good people of Vermont or New Hampshire or any of those border states, but I just don't want to go. We're going to go back to our phone lines right now, and we're going to go to here in Montreal, local number 514-597-4500. We're going to speak with Marie. Hi, Marie.
Hi. Okay. I've had a house in Vermont for 10 years, and it's been excruciating to cross, having to use a burner phone, leaving device at home. And also, what's appalling is that not yours, but some people's presidents wish to play a hard game with the tariffs, and now he wants to cheat with the federal to lower down the interest rate so he looks good while the economy is sinking. Just request the actual numbers from the Port of New Jersey and the Port of New York and watch the business go down. Just watch it go down. I don't think LA will be affected as much as we are going to be on the East Coast. Port of Montreal is in a wonderful situation. Port of Halifax is in a wonderful situation because we are in direct lane with New York, with Europe. I'm sorry, but Port of New York's business and Port of New Jersey is going to sink.
I'm impressed with your ability to sort of look at this all sort of in this cool, rational way. If you're still with us, I'm just wondering, are you feeling any of the emotion that people are talking about today?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been crossing, and I'm sorry, I have a sore throat. I've been crossing and having to leave my phone at home now. And I can feel the distress of people in Vermont because this is where I go. But it's rough. It's really rough. Yeah. And what's just so sad is the slurs and the lies, and he wouldn't even qualify as a janitor in Canada because we actually inquire a background check on people. So that this guy has been elected with is bunch of cronies who are leading one of the most beautiful and rich country. Is going to stink the economy for years.
Thank you for calling in. Really interesting to hear from you. Really interesting to hear from everybody today. I think we are going to go back, Michaela, to a call from south of the border.
Yeah, and I also just want to invite listeners too who might support President Trump or some or all of his policies and also feel close ties to Canada. Those two things are certainly not mutually exclusive. To call in as well and share your thoughts. 800-639-2211. I know this is a difficult topic, but as we have throughout this hour today, I think we can hear really diverse group of viewpoints that do exist in both our regions.
For sure.
We have Greeno calling in from Putney now. Greeno, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Merci. Je veux dire, j'adore Quebec. J'adore Quebec. I love to come up and visit. I don't get there as often as I would like to, but I'm going to make a concerted effort to come up more often. And I think all of us Vermonters could help out our Quebecois neighbors and shoot up 91. Sherbrooke is a great town. That's where I'm going to go. I have a friend up there. And also sounds like the Northeast Kingdom is going to need our business too. So don't let the custards get you down. Let's not let the custards get us down. It's so hard to hear about everybody's fear, and I understand it. But those of us who can do it, let's do it. Let's visit our neighbors. Let's go to the Northeast Kingdom and Quebec.
Thank you. I love that sentiment of cross-border friendship, Greeno. I appreciate hearing that today. Let's go to Franz in Brattleboro next. Or Franz, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I have a suggestion for something that people can do. It's something that we're just starting to organize down here in Brattleboro. And what we propose is that on Canada Day, July 1st, that Vermonters show their support for Canada's independence and sovereignty by declaring that just for that one day, Vermont is a province of Canada. And that we will organize groups of people at all the border crossings where people come from New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and we'll have signs that say, "Welcome to Canada. Bienvenue au Canada." And we will welcome people to the 11th province of Canada just for that one day. I think it'll be fun, and we'll make a splash and kind of turn the tables on those who have so callously said that Canada should be an American state. So I hope people will join us in this. You can find out more about us at vermontcando.org or vermontcando@yahoo.com. If you want to get in touch with us and volunteer, we could really use a lot of supporters on this.
Thanks for that, Franz. And that reminds me that we got an email from Kate in Middlebury who wanted to let folks know about a caravan to Canada on April 26th to show solidarity, affection, and acknowledgement of our shared concerns for the future of our planet. Our long, mostly successful, and friendly history deserves utmost honor and respect, Kate writes. The caravan of cars and trucks decorated with flags and signs will gather at Williston Park and Ride on Saturday morning, April 26th, and from there, head back to the border.
We are going to head back to this side of the border right now. Michaela, I want to bring somebody else into the conversation. Marilyn Bronstein, who lives here in Montreal. Her partner, David Scribner, lives in St. Johnsbury in Vermont. And for many years, they've just traveled back and forth, visiting each other. We spoke with them a few years ago on our program about their relationship, about that arrangement. Marilyn is back with us right now. Marilyn, welcome back to the program. Thanks for being here.
Oh, glad to be part of this.
Nice to hear your voice again. So this has been going on for years, but I'm really curious, what has this been like for the two of you since, November, December, January, the last few months?
Well, ironically, we've been traveling. We haven't been in Vermont. We haven't been in Canada. So we've been together outside of this, but now we're back together. David just left, and on April 26th, I'm going to be crossing over to see him in Vermont. So that's still going back and forth. But I find it hilarious about the 11th province because we haven't been talking about it so much, but this morning, because I knew I was going to be talking to you, I actually asked him, well, how do you feel about it? And he said, well, I do feel I have to apologize for my administration. He said, be like if we said, okay, why doesn't the states become the 11th province? He said it exactly like that. And then as he was walking out the door and kissed me goodbye just about an hour ago, he said, well, at least we get along.
I love that this is the first time that you guys even talked about this. I think that's fantastic. Have you ever considered, maybe with everything that's going on, sort of living in one place?
No, we didn't consider that, but I did actually say to him a few months ago, oh, maybe we're going to have to get married, so we would still be going back and forth, but maybe we'd have to flash our marriage certificate at the border just in case they start to give us any trouble.
I am really curious, because our whole program here today is, what do you want to say to people on the other side of the border? What would your message be?
Well, I guess the message is at least we still get along. Like, I think that I don't want to meet war with war, I don't even want to meet pride with pride. Like I'm an American, I'm a Canadian. To me, all of that is irrelevant. Love is love.
Marilyn, that seems like a perfect place to leave this conversation with you. Great to hear your voice again. Thanks for being with us today.
Okay, my pleasure.
That's Marilyn Bronstein. She lives here in Montreal. Her partner, David Scribner, lives in St. Johnsbury.
Oh, what a great call. Great to know the love is alive across the border, Sean. We have Joe Benning calling in from Lyndonville. Joe is a former state senator. Joe, what are your thoughts listening to this conversation?
Well, good morning, Michaela and Sean, or good afternoon now it is. I want to thank you both for having this conversation. I think it is incredibly important that people engage in this conversation. I am a Republican. I did not vote for Mr. Trump. I know many Republicans who did, and I know many of those are surprised that this kind of a subject would even be part of today's discussion. But I will remind my Canadian friends, this is a temporary blip on our radar screen of friendship for the past 250 years. I hope that it will go away of its own and be treated, at least by Congress, as the unfortunate joke that it is. And I'll leave you both with hopefully a pleasant thought, or at least a comical one to think about. Sean, this, I guess, is a question to you. Are you going to build a wall and make us pay for it? Thanks.
That's an excellent question. Thank you for the phone call. Phone number here, 514-597-4500, toll-free 1-877-597-4500. That's if you're calling from here in Quebec, here in Canada, as we do this special joint edition today of Radio Noon and Vermont edition. Michaela, we, I think, are headed back to another call here in Quebec. Let's go to Mile End right here in Montreal. John is here. Hi, John.
Hi, Sean. Hi, Michaela. I live in Montreal. I always listen to CBC, but I've been listening to Vermont Public for many years now. Ever since my bike mechanic told me that I should start listening to Car Talk. That was a long time ago, and I discovered that I could pull in the signal from Burlington with my father's old stereo receiver from the 1970s. Big fan of Mitch Wertlieb and his legendary sports reports, and Jen Jarecki and The View, of course. I even called in a couple times to Vermont Edition and got on it twice. Oh. So it's really a pleasure to talk to you.
And what do you want to say now to people listening in Vermont?
Well, nobody's pointed out the fact that there's been permanent damage done already. I don't think that things are going to go completely back to normal once Trump is gone and MAGA is hopefully purged from America. Because a lot of people are discovering in the process of, let's say, boycotting American products and travel to the United States that they might they might prefer destinations other than the United States, and some of them will go back to the United States, but I'm sure a lot of them or at least some percentage of them will feel like, well, I kind of enjoyed the my trip to the Caribbean or maybe elsewhere in Canada over places I used to go in the United States, and or I might prefer the products I've discovered, the Canadian products I've discovered from avoiding buying a Canadian product, avoiding buying American products. So I think it's very important that we just try and it's the permanent damage is just going to accumulate over time. And
hard to say what kind of implications, ramifications all of this is going to have. John, I'm really happy that you called in. Thank you for doing that, and good to speak with you. Michaela?
Yeah, and thank you for listening to public media on both sides of the border. Let's go next to Susan, who's in Dover, Vermont. Susan, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I've been here since 1971 when I first got married. All my family is in Canada, some just north of the border, and some over in Ontario. And I know my family in Ontario, which normally my brother would come down with his motorcycle group to the North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains. They also want to go to, my brother and his wife want to go to Cape Breton, but they're not going to come through and visit us and on their way, which is the most direct way to get there because of the situation. I would encourage Americans to visit Canada, whether it's just north of our area in Montreal, Quebec City, which are both beautiful year-round, the Eastern Townships, the Laurentians. We actually are going with my husband's family to the Trent Severn Rideau Canal, Trent Severn Canal this September. We'll be back up there in July to visit with my side of the family. And I really encourage Americans to think about supporting Canada and be in solidarity with Canada and what has happened by visiting Canada. There's so much to see and love about being in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, so much for calling in. And yeah, Sean, I'm hearing the desire from both sides of the border to continue visiting, but also reticence and even fear about that. Yeah.
Over and over the last few weeks, genuine fear and confusion. And that sense, I think someone said the word early in the hour of betrayal. Maybe even I said it. I'm not sure. But, that feeling of what has happened here and just sort of upending this long relationship. Yeah. Well,
let's go to one more caller here in Vermont. Heather is in East Calais. Heather, go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Who am I speaking with?
This is Michaela Lafrac and Sean Appel.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I was on hold. It didn't sound normal on this end.
Well, you're on the air. Go ahead. What are your thoughts listening to this conversation?
Well, so many things have been said that are so much more eloquent than I can say, but I really just wanted to express my support and encouragement to Canadians and taking a stance against the Trump administration's tariffs and threats and all of that, because he's got bully tactics, and I think acquiescing to that is a mistake. And so I'm so personally encouraged when I see people standing up, and Canadians are doing that. And
Heather, I'm just going to jump in here. I so appreciate you calling in and talking about the importance of protest to you right now. I want to make sure we get to one more caller there in Quebec.
So do I. So let's go to Sandy, who's calling from the Laurentians from Saint-Sever. Hi, Sandy.
Hi.
Sandy, what do you want to say to people listening in Vermont?
I just want to say that for 23 years, I've been married to a Quebecer, and I'm from Miami, Florida. And for 23 years, we've gone back and forth respectfully of each other's country and our country's rules. And while we don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things that are going on with the United States with regards to Canada, because it's not showing, I think, the kind of respect that we have shown with each other. And we're going to continue to do it and show both of our countries that they can't conquer our love, I guess.
That seems like a great place to leave things. Thank you so much for that phone call, Michaela. We are just about out of time. This has literally flown by.
It has, yes. It's been such a pleasure doing this with you, Sean, and with all your listeners.
Great. Thank you for approaching us. Great idea. I want to thank everybody who is listening for listening to this special edition of Radio Noon here and Vermont Edition on Vermont Public. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to everybody who phoned in from both sides of the border. And Michaela, thank you so much for co-hosting this with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I learned so much. The show is directed by Aaliyah Papes, produced by John Aarons and Aislinn May. Claudia Sanchez is the CBC technician, and Phil Edfers is Vermont Public's engineer. Brian Stevenson and Dave Rice produced our video, and our call screener today was Rick Barrett. I'm Michaela Lefrag. Thanks to everyone for listening. Sean, thank you again.
Thank you again.
And that is it for today. This is the CBC and Vermont Public. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for listening.